warm welcome on this Thursday morning here at the Hydrogen Fuel Cells Europe at the Hannover Fair 2022 in the public forum. Please join us for the upcoming interview. Have a seat, have some coffee on this morning or some tea, and listen to the next talk. Why are we repeating ourselves over and over again? It's also live streamed, so everybody listening remotely also knows who are we talking to. The next topic will be Nprox and Cummins, the perfect match for the global transition to hydrogen. And on stage, please a warm applause for the Managing Director of Sales from Nprox, Michael Himmen. Thanks for being here this morning.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here. Very nice.
Yeah, we talk about Nprox and Cummins. Maybe why are we talking about both of them?
So the real history behind that is that Nprox is quite a new company, which I think we share that history with a lot of the people that are here at the exhibition. So Nprox was founded in 2018 as a company founded by the mother company ETC, and then catch some interest from Cummins. And actually, since November 2020, Nprox is a joint venture, 50-50 joint venture between the company that founded Nprox, has predominantly donored the technology, ETC, and the company Cummins Incorporated.
So, and what is your role? You kind of know both companies. Tell me a bit about yourself.
Yeah, actually what you do if you found a joint venture, you try to have shared responsibilities in the management. So I was with Cummins and a typical diesel guy, I have to say that. Yeah, so diesel guy for more than 20 years of my life, but the first 4 years of my life I actually worked for Daimler in the fuel cell system integration research group, and actually pat my fingers at the first Nabus, if that tells you something. So then became a diesel guy, then worked for Cummins 7.5 years as to be a commercial leader for Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and the Cummins emission side. So at least a little bit green. And now in Nprox, responsibility-wise, I'm the Managing Director of Sales in the board of Nprox, and I'm one of 2 general managers for our production sites in Jülich, very close to Aachen in Germany. I still have a role in Cummins as to be a kind of a fuel cell component, means tank whatsoever person, and whoever preferred to contact me on my Cummins laptop, that is still possible.
Okay, so I mean, we're always excited when we can get somebody from the dark side, from the diesel, and bring it to the good side, or to the green side. So, who is Nprox? What is Nprox doing?
Okay, the real purpose or aim of Nprox, so the global target is to develop, produce, and market hydrogen, high pressure, compressed hydrogen storage tanks and tank systems for a variety of different applications. This is why the company was founded, and it was specifically founded to actually develop so-called Type 4 tanks, means tanks that have a kind of a polymer liner, and they have actually wrapped around from a mechanical stability standpoint with carbon fiber that is actually impregnated with an epoxy and a hardener kind of stuff.
So Nprox is a young company, 4 years old since 2018, focusing on hydrogen. On the other side, we have Cummins. Tell us a bit about Cummins. Who is Cummins today?
Tell a bit about Cummins. So I try. So I think everybody that is somehow in the industry in terms of vehicle knows Cummins as a diesel engine builder. We do that. We do that for on and off highway. We do this for a super big variety of different displacements. Cummins is active in about 190 countries worldwide. So we have our own facilities in all of those countries. We are about, without joint ventures, about roughly 65,000 employees. And then we have joint ventures in China, India, and actually in Russia, which is hard to say currently. And it's really a global worldwide company, a company that is aiming for something like $30 billion revenue yearly. And actually 100% of all products are today, or at least nearly 100% of all products are fossil fuel based, right? So we actually have a big challenge to overcome.
Yeah, Cummins is also here at the group exhibit, Hydrogen Fuel Cells Europe. So it's a young business. What are you doing for this young business on the Cummins side?
Yeah, from a Cummins perspective, I think we actually facing the challenge, right? So that we have to do this transition a lot quicker than you normally as a management would like to have that. So we actually looked in our business units, and we have kind of 4 established business units in Cummins, which is engine business. It's actually power systems, where we generate power, electrical power based on the engines we have. We actually have a components business, which we sell engine-related components to each and everybody in the industry, and we have distribution, which is predominantly smaller customs and aftermarket activities worldwide. If you look on this new power kind of a thing, you would say, hey, we do a little bit about fuel cells. Why should be a good idea to put fuel cells in the engine divisions? About tanks, should be a good decision to do that in components. But all of those 4 units are multi-billion-dollar entities, right? So, and they have a structure that fits well to those. They're directed well. But for this new business, people have to act like startups. You have to allow fast growth. You have to allow early market access. You have to go more risky, maybe in some areas. And you just have to have the ability of, okay, even from a KPI standpoint, allow bigger research budgets than you normally would do based on the amount of business that that business unit is doing. So what we actually did is we founded a 5th business unit, which we call New Power, and allow New Power, just from a revenue standpoint, it's marginal. It's super small today. But it allows us to have very non-hierarchic structures and to be a lot more flexible and a lot more oriented like you should be, and if you want to actually get a foot in the ground in those kind of businesses.
So it's a different approach to the industry or to the business to say, okay, we look at it separately, different kind of collaboration style, I guess, startup style, you've mentioned it. At this point, I would like to invite also the people, if you have questions, you can raise your hand, I come down, you can ask your questions, have a seat, enjoy a coffee anytime. So you have this young business called New Power at the moment. So where is Cummins heading, and why? We talked a bit about why, but what's the plan?
The plan obviously is to, let's say, one more challenge to be mentioned is actually that not all of the global markets we are in, right? So I mentioned about 190 countries we are present. I think we sell engines worldwide to pretty much every region. Not all the regions have the same speed in terms of decarbonization, right? So a lot of what we do here can we do because we can afford this to do. Not all of those regions have the same speed. Not all of the countries are prepared to go the same speed. So Cummins has to be prepared to be still a market leader in years and maybe decades in diesel. There's no doubt. So we need to continue to innovate, make diesel cleaner, more efficient, more reliable, and just a better product. But on the other hand, we are well aware that certain markets, Western-orientated markets, are on their way to get decarbonized. So we need to build a decarbonized kind of, let's say, same product portfolio. It might be fuel cell, it might be a hydrogen combustion engine, it might be tanks, it might be electrolyzers, it might be those kind of activities, and we have to grow this in parallel so that this actually becomes something like a 5th column of the success of that company.
So it's kind of like parallel development. On one hand, you continue the diesel track, it's going well. On the other hand, the new track. Do you see that's not now, but in the future it could become a challenge to pursue both tracks?
It clearly is. So one of the things is, so a portion of our, let's say, strategy is as well, I don't know if a lot of you have heard that sentence, but it's actually last man standing. And what does that mean? If you have a global diesel market and that shrinks, you can still grow in that shrinking market. And it's all about that you might be the only guy that still have high enough volumes to develop decent products, while others struggle, while they're losing more and more portfolio. So to give you an example, if a Cummins ISB 6.7, we built this about 800,000 times worldwide emissionized. Who has that volume in the industry, right? So we will be in that for a while. The challenge is really that obviously for all this research budget now in new power, sooner or later there will be appetite of all the other business sectors to actually get the same thing or get a part of that. And you actually, and in some cases, you even have a kind of an internal combat about what is the best solution. Sometimes this is very fruitful, like is the fuel cell always the best option or is this a hydrogen combustion engine? Even though we know that hydrogen combustion engines are not completely emission-free, we are well aware of that. They're just a hell of a lot better than the diesel. But yeah, there are obviously challenges. And then the other thing is battle around good talent, right? So I just had the experience that a lot of the people all of a sudden wants to be in the hydrogen thing, right? So because it's new, it's sexy. But actually, as a company, we just have to manage that, right? So we have to.
I mean, it's sexy and it's also a growing market compared to other markets that are shrinking, as you mentioned yourself. We talked about the challenges to pursue two directions at the same time. Let's talk about the advantages Cummins has as such a large company.
I think there are certain things that Cummins has to offer to a guy like Nprox, right? So first of all, I think we have a very good market knowledge about different applications. Let's take city buses globally. What is the need for a city bus to become a hydrogen bus? I think we know the global variety of bus OEMs very well. We have global sales access to almost all those companies, and we do business today with almost all those companies, and we know the leaderships very well. And that actually helps, obviously, NPROXX to do the right things in terms of speccing out those kind of systems. And then it's a global aftermarket. If you are a startup company, and NPROXX is now about to be 100 people, so we are on the way to no longer be a startup. We are industrial production, so we build thousands of those tanks every year. So, but nevertheless, it's a challenge to export that to Australia, because how in the hell you get an aftermarket sector in Australia? But sooner or later you will need that. So this is something that Cummins offer. Then scaling production. We obviously have plants worldwide that have thousands of people working and pumping product, all of that, and we exactly know how to do that. And automotive kind of OEM procedures. So how to be certified to IATF 16949, which is needed for a lot of those activities. How to do that if you have no expertise on your site that can give a lot of input into those kind of things. And another thing maybe to be mentioned, and this is as well a very fair statement, it's just financial funding, right? Credit rating. Do you get the same funding if you are just the startup alone, working on yourself? Or do you need actually a partner? And I actually encourage everybody that might be here and that might feel like, hey, we have a great technology, to think about 10 years ahead. What do you need in 10 years? And do you really have enough time in 10 years to build all that? Or do you look for someone that actually is willing to partner? Right? So, and everybody has to make their own decisions. I think ETC and NPROXX made it very wise from my perspective, which partially is because I'm a Cummins guy, right? So.
Yeah, of course. But actually, the way you say this, you bring in new power also for startups, because you just have knowledge, experience, and of course also the financial means to start this business. Maybe again to the audience, are there any questions at the moment from your side? Good. You already mentioned that you are where the client is. What do you see as like the ideal case how to offer the demand or the request from the clients in the different regions?
I think that might be the main challenge for a lot of you, right? So how to cope with the interest that is there today, and how to satisfy each and every customer, right? So the first thing that has to be said is we have to be very careful not to be pulled in each and everything, because there are just too much applications out there for, in the case, for example, for a diesel engine, to actually work on all of them in parallel, right? So we actually have to concentrate on certain sectors. And what actually I think is a key thing, and you all will know that, is how to get the infrastructure thing right. So how to get hydrogen to the point, to the vehicle, to the application, however we do that. So things that come back every day to the same location is ideal. Things that only go from A to B is ideal. then you can install infrastructure right there. Or you pick, like the European Union picked in greenhouse gas, let's say long-haul trucks, and the greenhouse gas law is 2030. So, and then you can reduce the amount of critical infrastructure you actually need as to put those at the central location in each and every highway main connection in Europe. So you can build a grid of those fueling stations specialized in fueling long-haul trucks, and that will save a lot of CO2 and a lot more CO2 than if we tried to do the same thing in medium duty. So it's just about how much are the trucks driven, how much are they used, how much fuel consumption do they have. So one thing is to concentrate on the right thing. The other thing is, obviously, we have to get local. So a lot of this is sponsored by funding as well, right? So, and a lot of this funding is actually given to local activities and local production, but on the same thing, anyhow, all of those OEMs out there and all of the bigger gas supply industry partners expect us to be global. So they expect us to have a facility in the US producing the same thing. They expect us to have a facility maybe in China with all the difficulties of, in our case, not getting fiber into China, not getting valves into China, not being allowed to send vessels into China, and having all those restrictions we're facing today in terms of how to get people, experts in and get experts out, which is challenging. But this is clearly the future. The future is we have to become global, because today's solutions for engines and power production is global. There is not something like you can do that in every village with a very special solution. I'm sure we will see this once in a while, but the real, for bigger volumes and scaling up is that. The other thing is obviously raw material. We're all facing that, right? So we're all facing COVID. We're all facing the crisis in terms of how do we get global supply chains realigned and how to make that happen. And on the other hand, how to arrange long-term contracts with suppliers so that they have enough trust in our ability to consume their goods, and therefore they can do their investment planning properly. And maybe in some cases we have to help to do investments, right? So to ensure we get the right amount of raw material.
Thank you so much, Michael Himmen. This was a perfect last word, what the challenges are for the future. Thanks for being here, and a big round of applause for you.
Thank you. Thank you.